I have become a bit of an accidental expert on the safety risks posed by performance-enhancing metal bats. It's an issue that has been fought over for more than a decade, but which I really didn't know much about until about 2 months ago, when a major tragedy occurred in my district, galvanizing the Marin County baseball community, reigniting a national debate, and causing my constituents to ask me to take action. And what happened was this. In March, a 16-year-old baseball player in Marin County by the name of Gunnar Sandberg was pitching in a game, and he was struck in the head by a line drive. His injuries required him to be hospitalized. His condition deteriorated. He had suffered a traumatic brain injury. And eventually, doctors at the hospital had to perform life-saving emergency surgery where they actually removed a piece of his skull to take pressure off the brain and put him into an induced coma. For several weeks, he was in the ICU. He remained in the coma. The good news is he came out, and it looks like he's on his way to a fairly full recovery, we hope. In fact, today, Gunnar's family, his friends, his baseball community, and many people from Marin County were hoping to be here with you today to urge you to support this bill. But today happens to be the day he was released from the hospital to come home, and all of us agreed that it's better that they were there to welcome him. Since I dove into this issue, I have discovered that Gunnar's case is not an isolated incident by any stretch. In fact, in the last couple of months, I've heard accounts of similar injuries and narrowly avoided injuries from all over the state, all over the country. And the message that we have heard is unanimous from these folks. The hyper-performance of high-tech metal baseball bats has gone too far. It's increasing the risk of serious injury and, yes, death for young people. And we have to do something about it before more people are seriously hurt or killed. If you talk to people that have played or coached or been around the game of baseball for many, many years, people like Blaine Clemens here, who you're going to meet in a moment, you'll hear from them that the high-tech metal baseball bats have fundamentally changed the game of baseball. And it's not just the pinging sound that drives baseball purists kind of crazy. It's actually the performance of the bats, and there are several elements to that. It starts with the properties of aluminum and metal bats. And it's what we call the trampoline effect, the fact that these materials cause balls to travel at greater speed. This is what you would expect given the properties of a metal bat versus a wood bat. It's confirmed by studies, and it's fairly obvious to anybody that has observed the game of baseball a lot. In fact, I was just reading an article yesterday where a Division I NCAA coach was quoted as saying, "Any idiot can see the ball jumps off an aluminum bat faster than a wood bat." Then there's the issue of increased bat speed, and this is a key factor because aluminum bats are lighter. They are designed to swing significantly faster than wood bats. And then finally, there's the issue of the bigger sweet spot. This is the section of the barrel of the bat that generates the maximum power and velocity, and it's much larger on aluminum bats than it is on wood bats. What that means is that there are going to be more hard-hit balls because of these bats. So there are no disputes about the performance characteristics that I've just described to you for the bat. There's no dispute. In fact, the posters that we have over here are just examples of the marketing materials that bat manufacturers themselves use when they're selling their products. They admit a greater chance for power, greater velocity, greater you can hit the ball harder. They admit that there's a greater sweet spot. They admit that you're going to get greater bat speed. And these indisputable facts, along with examples like the tragedy that occurred with Gunnar Sandberg, tell us indisputably, I believe, that we have a safety issue. Now, how serious is this safety risk? Well, it's serious enough that the NCAA in 1998 actually proposed some pretty strong restrictions on the use of metal bats. NCAA is the standard-setting entity for both college and, by incorporation, the high school baseball level. That never happened, though, because NCAA was sued by Easton Corporation, the largest manufacturer of bats, an opponent to my bill here today, for restraint of trade. And the settlement in that lawsuit put in place more lenient safety standards, standards that were proposed by the bat manufacturers, standards that ignore key factors such as bat speed, such as the sweet spot, standards that certainly have enabled the $150 million a year metal bat industry to continue growing for the last decade, but standards that seriously mask the performance and safety difference between metal and wood bats. And so as my staff and I have worked on this bill, and we've met with Gunnar Sandberg's family and the baseball community and officials and experts, we've struggled with the issue of what to do about this. There are some people who think the answer is simply to ban metal bats. That's what they have done in the state of North Dakota. It's what they've done in the city of New York. And a lot of baseball enthusiasts like this because they've never really liked aluminum bats anyway. And they point out that at all professional levels, wood bats are used. And in fact, most of the community college leagues around the West, except for California, use wood bats. And even the elite high school tournaments often use wood bats because scouts want to see players hit with wood. Others think that there's too much focus on the bat. And I think they have some legitimate points. They point out that safety might be best addressed by some type of protective gear that could be worn by pitchers. You think about other sports that have evolved in this way, and you think about the old leather helmet for football. You think about the advent of helmets for hockey players and any number of other advances in sports to provide safety. And I think there is some serious merit in consideration of those alternatives. That's why AB 7 puts all of this on the table but doesn't dictate an outcome. AB 7 is a narrowly tailored temporary measure that doesn't decide what the safety solution will be. Rather, it proposes a temporary moratorium on non-wood bats so that baseball itself can figure this out. It's a precautionary measure to level the playing field while nudging baseball officials to bring this decades-long debate to a workable, durable solution that honors the game and improves safety. Now, the need for this kind of a state leveling of the playing field, for legislation, was underscored by a recent action by North Coast section baseball officials. The Marin County League, after the tragedy with Gunnar Sandberg, voluntarily imposed a ban on metal bats. And as the season progressed, they went to the North Coast section and they asked that that be extended to their region for the playoffs. And the North Coast section voted against that. And it's understandable. They decided that it's unfair to do that in the middle of a season to other teams and other players. They decided that it's unfair to put their teams and players at a competitive disadvantage against teams and players from other parts of the state that aren't going to do it. Now, I've seen quotes from other coaches around the state who would favor a switch to wood bats, but only if everybody did it. Because nobody wants to act unilaterally. Nobody wants to put themselves at a competitive disadvantage against other players. That's why we need AB 7, because it allows a workable way for this to happen, and it's fair and equitable. And frankly, if the state tells folks to do this for the next few years, they can't be sued for restraint of trade by baseball bat manufacturers. So it is very important. I think we have an indispensable role to play in creating the conditions for the baseball community itself to sort out and solve this problem.